Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Way That I See It. My name is Lucy Superfox, and this is my podcast. So today, you've got me on a very sunny Saturday afternoon recording. And what I wanted to talk about today was the relationship you have with yourself. And really, the reason I'm so passionate about this topic is because it's one of my superpowers, is that I have been so fully aware and so fully invested in the relationship that I have with myself that is how I've created such radical transformation in so many areas. And whenever that transformation has slowed down, feels like it's gone backwards, feels like there was more to be done, I have then gone to do the work on myself. And I think where most people fall down is when something is going on the outside of their life, not maybe going how they want it to go, not maybe in the right energy space, or maybe things feel like they've shifted backwards for you, whether that's in business, relationships, body, it doesn't really matter, right? Ultimately, in that moment, people basically presume the thing they need to do is go to work more on the thing that's broken, right? Or the thing that's going backwards, or the thing that's sliding, or the whatever. And one of my biggest lessons really over the last few years, and one of my biggest tips of wisdom that I could really share with you, is truly that when an area of our life isn't thriving, it's normally because the energy that we're giving to it isn't thriving. And that energy that we're giving to it is our intention, is our focus, is our passion. You could argue our time, right? Our time's part of that. But the reason we're not giving energy to it is because of what we believe about it. It's because of what we've decided is true about it, not because of what's actually happening. Because there are people that in the depths of, economic crisis become multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires and other things. There are people in the times where the Instagram algorithm hates us who go absolutely viral. And actually, I've been one of those people over the last few weeks, and it's been absolutely nuts. There are times when, two people could be going through the same relationship challenge, and actually one's thriving and one's only just surviving. And the difference between whether or not you are a survivor or a thriver in each of that area of life, no matter what's going on, is truly the way that you think about it and the way that you feel about it. Now, the way that we think and the way that we feel is programmed, right? 95% of us is on autopilot. And that is because our subconscious mind stores things from about the age of 7 to make our lives easier, to make it easier for us to get through every single day, right? Because if we had to think about every single thing we had to do, we wouldn't have enough energy to even get past 9 a.m., right? So what happens is our subconscious mind stores things in the back. I call it the filing cabinet. And then when an experience happens, we like to refer to the past. So we refer to the filing cabinet, pull out the drawer and go, right, which memory feels like this? Let's respond the same way. And especially if we have similar things that we do every single day, there's some lot of anecdotal feedback that is, once you've done something 3 times, it's stored as a habit, right? Whether that might be a way you drive to work, or, when you go to the gym, what you do in order of, exercises. So what I think is important to know is that you will be responding to every situation based on autopilot. You are filtering for things, right? And it's called confirmation bias. You are filtering for things based on what you currently know, currently believe, and have currently experienced up to this point about the area of life. So let's say we're talking about money. If you have always had an experience where money comes in and then money goes out, you are looking for evidence that that is real. We've talked about the reticular activating system before. This is the filtering system in your mind. This is where the confirmation bias lives. It says, I must be right. It wants to keep you right. It wants to keep you safe, and it wants to keep you alive. So when you are going through life, about your everyday life, and you're not giving something intentional, focused, committed, passionate energy, you are on autopilot. And when you are on autopilot, you are seeing it through the lens of who you have been. You're seeing it through the lens of the habits, the behaviors, the mindset, the life you've had up to this point. You're not seeing it through a future lens of who you could be or how things could go. You're seeing it through who you've been up to this point. And so this is why one of the reasons that it's so important to be intentional about our goals, and so important to be present when we set new goals, and not to set 74 goals at once, right? To actually set 1 or 2 that really mean something to you and give them that your energy and intention, is not because you can't do all these other things. It's not because you can't have body goals and business goals at the same time. It's because if you split your energy and intention too many ways, what then happens is you fall into autopilot. And there are some areas of life that you can afford to fall into autopilot, right? Whether that might be that actually you've conditioned yourself to be a healthy, fit, and happy person. Amazing. Your fitness goals can probably fall onto autopilot. But when we're trying to create something new, right? Any area of our life, we're trying to grow it, expand it, drive it, give it love, make it, blossom, whatever word you want to use. you've got to give it energy, intention, and focus, because otherwise we fall into autopilot. And when we fall into autopilot, we fall into the past lens of how things used to go, of how things have gone up to this point, not the life we are trying to design and create. And so if your relationship with yourself, right, is shaky, in all of these scenarios, we will look outside of ourselves to the feeling to change. So we will look outside of ourselves when the business starts going backwards and say, it's the economy, it's the business, it's this, it's that, it's the customers, they don't pay on time. If your relationship starts to go a bit haywire, maybe you're arguing more, maybe things feel more difficult, or maybe it's a relationship with a child, right? You will naturally and automatically put the blame and the challenges on the other person. If, let's say, you are somebody who works in, maybe you've got some fitness goals and you're not really feeling like you're succeeding, you'll easily jump to, oh my God, it must be hormones. Oh my God, it must be this. Oh my God, it must be the fact that, the gym have moved this equipment around. Like, we naturally want to be right. So when something happens and we feel like we're not going in the direction of our goals and dreams, things aren't moving forward at the way we want, and we haven't built a solid, honest relationship with ourselves where we can go in and do the inner work as the first step, we will look outside of ourselves every single time. And the problem with that is, I can absolutely guarantee you that in every situation of anything that happens in your life, the number one thing that you need to do as a priority is assess and review what's happening on the inside, not what's happening on the outside. Because here's the thing, external factors can always have an impact, but we have to be able to adapt, evolve, and then move on with those external factors. If we are expecting external things in our life to stay the same so that we can feel safe, so that we can feel sure, so that we know what we're doing, right? So that we can live on autopilot, let's be truthful here. What we're actually saying is, I want to stay the same. I want to stay the same. And I know I've had a massive radical fear of change. I've built things for 5 years a certain way, and then something's happened or something's changed on the outside of me. And because at that point I hadn't built a solid relationship with myself, there was still so much inner work to do, right? I lost my head. I lost my head. And when I then invested that time and spent that time back doing that inner work on what that situation was, what it triggered, what it brought up for me, how it made me feel, I then recognized how much inner work there was to do. Because if we are sure of our goals and dreams and desires, we don't need an outside situation to tell us it's possible. Because if actually anyone has ever achieved the thing that we want, it's freaking possible. So why is it that we look to blame and give responsibility and power away? And it's honestly because it's so exhausting to give energy and intention to things over time, especially if then we keep falling into autopilot. So we feel like we give it attention and energy for like 3 days, then we drop into autopilot for 27 days a month. And then we're like, why is nothing changing? Because we're dropping into autopilot. So when we drop into autopilot, this is what we have to recognize. The autopilot has to change. And the only way what our autopilot gets programmed as, because we could be programmed as a multi-millionaire, successful, healthy, happy, fit, loving, kind, generous person on autopilot, but we have to program it, right? We have to actually reset what's happening in there already. We have to clear, we have to make space, we have to heal any wounds that sit there. And by there, I don't just mean in your head, right? I mean in your body. We have to heal the wounds. Then we have to give ourselves the love, give ourselves that restoration, that energy. Then we're in a place to start thinking about what we want, start setting intentions and energy, start putting things out. And then we're in a position where we actually step into becoming that person. And these are the 5 steps, right? These are the 5 modules of the Becoming course. And that's not an accident, right? That's based on my experience. So step 1 is clearing. Step 2 is healing. Step 3 is restoring. Step 4 is manifesting. And step 5 is becoming. And when you look at any area of life that you're trying to change, right? The number one thing that needs to change before you can change it, because otherwise you'll be on autopilot, is yourself. And the number one relationship that you need to be working on is the relationship you have with yourself. How do you see yourself? How do you know yourself? How do you like yourself? Do you trust yourself? Are you sure of yourself? Do you feel safe in yourself? Do you like what you see when you look in the mirror? It's not just about how your body looks. It's about, do you like the way you speak to yourself? Do you like the way you work? Do you like how you always say, do you always say what you're going to do, what you say you're going to do? Like, what are the things that you need to go to work on yourself? And only you are the one that knows that. But the reason why I created a course called Becoming was because most people know what they want. They know what they need to do, and they're just not fucking doing it. And the truth is, they're not fucking doing it because they're not the person they need to be. And they're spending 90% of their time, if not 95% of their time, dropping into autopilot and exhausting themselves with intention and energy, trying to push against a 95% program with a 5% conscious mind. And what you have to be able to do is you have to clear who you've been in order to become who you want to be. And this is why you must invest in your relationship with yourself, whether it's reading a book, whether it's doing a journal, whether it's a morning routine. You must get to know yourself, and you must build a relationship with yourself where you can count on yourself to create the desires that you are looking for. When we give all our power and energy away to the things outside of us to change our life, what we're actually doing is draining energy from our own capability to create change. Because number one, you're not taking ownership or responsibility. Number two, you're then not changing, right? Because you're absolutely looking to live on autopilot, keep things exactly the way that they were. And in all of those scenarios, nothing good ever grows. Just like a garden, right? If you want the garden to grow, you want the flowers to grow, you want it to blossom and bloom, you've got to clear the weeds, right? You've got to get the weed killer out. You've got to then maybe get some fertile soil. You've got to water the soil. When the soil and the flowers start to blossom, you've got to prune them a bit. Sometimes they get a bit overzealous, right? Guys, there is work to be done. And that work is always on the relationship we have with ourselves. And honestly, the number one thing that I think that has set me apart from maybe where I could have gone, right? So where I could have ended up in life and where I am today is based on the relationship that I have with myself and my willingness to do my inner work, my willingness to show up for myself. And look, I am not perfect, God no. But my willingness to sit there and say there is work to be done. And I'm willing to face it, to have the right professional, to read the next book, to do the journal prompts, to, do the meditation, to do the body work, to do the breath work, to do whatever the work is. And this is the thing about the Becoming course, right? It's not just a head game. This is a head and a body course, and it's why it's my favorite, and literally the thing I'm going to bang on about until everybody has done this course or some variation of it. Because the truth is, you are who you are today, not just because of what's stored in your mind, but what's stored in your body, right? There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's very deep, a lot of mention of trauma. You have to work out how sensitive you are to that kind of thing. But what I want you to understand is the story of your life is stored in your body, not in your mind. You keep memories in there, you keep programs in there, you keep habits, but the story of your life, emotionally, how you feel about things, is stored in your body. And so if we want to shift and change things, much like we need to clear the weeds, we also have to clear the weeds from our mind and our body. And this is why I created this course, because this is the journey I have been on over the last couple of years. And it's a journey that I was willing to go on, and not everybody is. And I get that. But what you have to know is, if you are trying to create anything exceptional, the reason that you are not thriving, if you are not thriving, the reason that maybe you feel like you go 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or the reason you feel like you self-sabotage, is because the relationship you have with yourself is built on shaky foundations. And if you want to transform your life, the number one relationship you must change, even if the thing you want to change right now is a relationship in your life, whether it's your kids, with your partner, with your husband, with your business, whatever, you must change the relationship with yourself, because you are the foundation in everything. You are the constant. You take you with you. So wherever you go, you're coming too. So if you haven't done that work to like yourself, to know yourself, to trust yourself, to respect yourself, to give yourself fucking everything you promised yourself, then that is where your work must begin. So if you feel called to enroll in the Becoming course, you can do that now. It's open at lucysuperfox.com/confidence. This isn't a self-worth, it's a confidence, it's a somatic healing, it's a growth, it's a development, it's a manifesting, it's an everything next level course, because it's the journey I've been on, and all this work changed my life. So I love you all so much. Thanks so much for joining me. And this was the way that I see it. And I will see you on the next episode.